On November 25th, 2017, I officially and publicly came out as transgender. It was a big deal. It's something I had been thinking about for a year, if not more. Something that had been weighing on my mind really my whole life, if I think about it. Why was I always into stuff that a lot of people saw as more girly? Stuff like Barbie, My Little Pony, and various other things. Why was I always wanting to play female characters in video games? Why did I always like a lot of the female characters in media more than the male ones? And big question, why did I always want to be these female characters? To wear their outfits, to look like them? These are questions that had been flowing around in my head really most of my life. But questions that I pushed away, that I buried because I was raised a certain way. I had to believe certain things about myself based on the way I look, based on the things I have. And because of that, I was put into a box based on narrow-minded classifications that I had no control over. And it stifled me. It stifled me greatly and was, even if I didn't know it at the time, one of the contributing factors to my big period of depression. To the point in my life where I actively attempted suicide multiple times. It wasn't the only factor, but without question was one of them, even if I didn't realize it at that time. And so I had heard about other trans people, but I was raised in a way to look down on them, to look down on queer people in general. I was raised in a way that I was superior because I was straight, white, cisgender, and Christian. It's horrible. And I regret those thoughts I used to have. But I was able to break away from it because I started learning more about myself. Through interacting with others, through developing my own experiences outside of the influences that had turned me into that. And I discovered a lot about myself in terms of my orientation. And eventually, my gender. I came to realize that things are not binary. Things are not just ones and twos that you can count that easily. Gender is a system we as humans made up in the first place, just to note the differences between two different body types that we happen to see at that time. But if you look at it nowadays, there's so many variations of even those that it really doesn't work anymore anyway. I started thinking about it, and I started looking into it. I started looking into other trans people and their experiences and hearing their stories. I started thinking about a lot of it myself and looking into studies talking about trans people and learning that trans people's brains tend to match the gender that they are, not what they were assigned at birth. That in terms of their brains, in terms of everything about them, they are who they say they are. And so at YomaCon in 2017, I talked to a trans person I knew, Kieran Strange. I talked to him, and after a panel that he and a friend was hosting, discussing stuff like this, I came out to him. But I wasn't 100% sure yet. And I asked if he could lead me to someone who could help talk through things more. And he led me to his friend also on the panel. And we talked, and I thought about it through the weekend and everything, and after the convention, I was sure. It just made sense to me. Through the research, through everything, all the time I spent thinking about it, all the time I spent just thinking about everything from my past, I realized that I'm a girl. And that this was just true. That it wasn't some random lie I was telling myself, but that this was something that I had always been hiding from myself. And so when I finally admitted it to myself out loud, I felt like the biggest wave of relief rush over me. Like, physically felt it. And it was the most freeing feeling I had ever felt. It felt like all of my worries were fleeing me. All of my anxieties and fears were afraid of me. Because for the first time, I knew who I was. And so I started to figure out how to come out to others. There were plenty of friends I had who I knew would be accepting, but there were others who I knew wouldn't. But the biggest issue was my family, especially my parents. The ones who raised me to think, act, and speak in ways that I am no longer proud of. And never will be again. I started by coming out to a group at a time. A group of friends just in a group chat on Facebook. And almost universal acceptance. They said that they were happy for me, that they still were friends with me, that all was good. I did another group, and another group, and there were some who would say otherwise. And I would get private one-on-one messages sent to me telling me that they didn't agree with this, that this was something that they just did not believe in. And I can tell you, those are friends I don't speak to anymore, that I haven't seen in literal years at this point. And so I then had to come out and tell family. And I told some family through the group chat, a lot of them even. And some of them accepted it very easily. But it was still the big issue with telling my father, specifically. Even more so than my mother, who was a little more accepting regarding it, but still unclear and not really the best at handling situations. But she at least tries. Then there was my father, who I was the most afraid of telling. And when I told him, it was a simple, "I'm not surprised." That was his response. When I told him the new name I had settled upon, he said it made sense because it was a variation of the online pseudonym I already used. And so I thought it went well. But ever since, he never has once addressed me with the proper pronouns. And he has never once used my new name. I thought it went well, but it didn't. And unfortunately, I have to live with that pretty much every day. It's something I just have not been able to escape from due to my situation financially and in general. But after having come out and being completely open about it, even starting a new social media profile for Facebook to completely start anew with this portion of my life, I also wanted to look the part. So outside of just growing out my hair, I had to get clothes and stuff. A friend took me to get a wig as an early Christmas present that year. She also gave me some of her old clothes that fit me, don't fit her anymore, but fit me, and even gave me makeup. And when I tried on the wig, the clothes, the makeup, all of that together, I felt happy. Happier than ever. I felt like myself. And as the months passed along, I ended up making a GoFundMe and asked people to donate to help me get clothes to help with my transition, makeup, and other things. And they did. I got donations coming in, and I was able to get feminine clothes. And it eventually reached its goal, and I decided I'm not going to be too greedy here. I hate asking for money as it is. So I'm just going to end this. And so as time would go along and I would get, excuse me, just various money elsewhere, I would just add on when I could. I eventually started going to Pride events, and I met some friends, one of which who gave me an entire bag of breast forms that I could wear under a bra to give the illusion, at least, of having breasts that I still have to this day. A friend from my new church ended up getting me a bra. A couple bras, actually. Because my old church was not accepting of this, and even without telling me, ended up removing me from the membership. So I left that church and luckily was able to find a new one that was actively open and affirming and has multiple queer people within it, even ones who preach occasionally. And I've been very happy there ever since. I met a lot of new friends and I lost contact with a lot of old ones. And my life changed, but for the better. I, excuse me, I was able to truly be myself. And to this day, I feel just a lot happier about where I am in life. It was an experience that I could never turn back on. And although I now accept they them pronouns as well as she her, I without question still consider myself a girl, a trans female. It is freeing and it is me. And for these past 5 years, it's been the greatest decision I've ever made, without question. Because I love who I am now. And I know who I am now. Being out as not only pansexual but transgender allows me to fully express myself and to fully experience the world in the way that I'm meant to. And it's allowed me a lot of new experiences and a lot of new perspectives. And I wouldn't change that for the world. And it sucks having to lose friends. It sucks having family constantly misgender and dead name me. And it sucks that I don't have the money to be able to eventually get on HRT at the moment. But eventually, maybe things will start changing in that regard. Maybe even just small steps, I'll end up getting a name change. Or getting my gender marker on my ID changed. It would be small steps, but very important ones. But until that time would ever come, I surround myself with people who accept me for who I am and who know who I am. And it allows me to feel free and alive and happy. So for 5 years now, I have been out as a trans woman. Someone who never got to experience a lot of this growing up and never got to discover who I am as a child because of lack of resources, lack of media that depicted us, lack of understanding, and the influences in my own life and how I was raised. I lost out on an entire childhood as a girl that I now get to experience to some degree as an adult at 30 years old now. So for 5 years now, I've been truly alive. It's not just a 5-year Trans-a-Versary. It's my 5th birthday in a way. My 5th birthday as Connie. And I'm enjoying every moment. And I want to reach so many more. So I thank you all on the channel who have accepted me, who use the proper pronouns, the proper name, everyone who followed me over after I transitioned, everyone who was a follower on the old channels, everyone who's a new follower. I just thank you for continuing to support. Not just the channel, but me. And I know this isn't as big a video as you would think 5 years of 5th anniversary would require. But I think just talking about this, detailing my experience, is much more meaningful. And I hope that everyone watching could get something out of this. Whether discovering more about yourself, or maybe broadening your viewpoint on things a little. I hope that you were able to gain new perspectives based on my own. And if you ever need anyone to talk to about this, feel free to private message me on Twitter, on Discord, anywhere like that. Links are always in the description and on the channel. Feel free to private message me. I'm always willing to listen. So thank you. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.